Hey traders, most people draw random support and resistance lines and wonder why the market keeps blowing right through them. And the truth is, the market doesn't really respect lines, it respects volume. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use volume profile to spot the exact levels where buyers and sellers are actually interested, and then I'll backtest it so you can see how powerful these zones really are. And if you want to take it a step further, you can join my free Discord where I talk through trading every day. And you can catch me here live on YouTube as I trade these setups in real time. I use this strategy live. So come join me, check it out. All right, let's dive into the charts. Now there's two different volume profile indicators that I use. I'm going to go through each one of them, kind of talk to you a little bit about why I use them, what some of the settings are, because people always ask me about that. And then I'm going to get into backtesting so I can show you how I actually use them in real time. So the first one is called the visible range volume profile, and that's the one that you see over here on the right. So the indicator for that, you'll just type in here on your indicators, visible range volume profile. So that one right there. And the settings that I use for this one, I put the placement on the right. My colors, I change them to gray. So you're welcome to take a screenshot of this if you would like to see how I look at them. I turn off the value areas and the point of control because I don't use it, the point of control for this particular indicator. I do on the other one, which I'll show you. And then for the inputs, I change the row size to be a little more granular. And then the other parts I keep the same. So those are my settings. The visible range volume profile, what this is it shows you the volume for the price action that you have on the screen. So if you notice the way it looks now, and then as I zoom in or zoom out, this calculates differently. So it's a little bit up to your discretion. It changes, so you'll have to kind of get used to it and back test it and see what works for you. But basically what it's showing is how much volume, how much buying and selling happened at a certain price. The volume that shows on the bottom of the screen typically, that shows time. This is going to show how much action, price action, selling and buying happened at a specific price. So the areas of high volume are going to be these high volume nodes right here, and areas where there was low volume are going to be these low volume nodes down here. So that is visible range volume profile. The other volume profile that I use is the fixed range volume profile, and that is going to be over here on your projection tools on TradingView, and you can click on this fixed range, and what that's going to allow you to do is go to a specific time frame. So I use it often for the New York session. So for me, I'm Central Time. So if you click on, for example, 8:30 a.m. is when the New York Open starts, and go through until the New York session closes at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, so 1500, and click again. So you click once at the open, click once at the end of your range, and this is going to show the volume profile for that specific session. You can also do it for the overnight session, which I often do, and if you join me for my live trading, you can see how I implement that. But this is going to be the volume profile for that specific range of time, a fixed range. The volume profile on the right, the visible range volume profile over here on the right, is going to show you for the entire price action that is on your screen, depending on how zoomed in or zoomed out you are. For my fixed range volume profile, I'll show you the settings here. Again, the row size, I change this to be a little bit more granular. I do extend it right because as price is developing, let's say it's 11 a.m. Central Time and the session is still continuing and I've marked off my fixed range so far, price is still developing. So if you click extend right, it's going to continue to move with you as price develops. So I do that, and then style, again, I change the colors to make them a little bit more mellow. I think the default is like bright blue and bright yellow or something like that. The placement I put on the left, and then the width of the box, you can change that to be 20 or 30 or whatever. That's just going to make it bigger or smaller depending on how much of your screen you want it to be taking up. This right here, the top of the shaded area is going to be your value area high. The bottom of the shaded area is going to be your value area low. And then this line going across is the point of control. And I do keep that on my screen. Like I said, on the visible range volume profile for the first one, I turn off the point of control. So real quick, I go into this in more detail on some of my other volume profile videos. But the point of control is basically the fair value of that previous session. So this session right here, the fair value, so where buyers and sellers had the most transactions and where they basically agreed on a fair price, was right here at the point of control. Most of the buying and selling happened at that price right here, $23,930. And you can see, obviously it's dependent on how zoomed in and zoomed out I am, but that's also a high volume node over here. So they give the same information, these two indicators, but I use them differently. Now let's go ahead and throw this into replay mode. I am going to select a random bar so you guys can see that I'm not just cherry picking this price action. And I'm going to zoom out to the 15-minute chart. And the first thing I do when I'm setting up my charts for the day is I zoom way out and I will mark off some of these high volume nodes so I can see where the support and resistance is potentially. Now this random bar replay that I showed up at, you can see it's a little bit tough because this whole area is kind of a high volume area, and that's right where price is right now. So we'll see how price reacts to it. But what I do is pull my little rectangle tool from this shape's spot, and I'll kind of separate it a little bit. So there's one right there. There's one a little bit lower. So again, I'm on the 15-minute time frame. So once I zoom into the 5-minute, I might be able to change these a little bit. But there's three kind of separate spots right there. And this rectangle tool, I'll show you my settings. If you go to Style, Extend left and right, that way it shows kind of a box where my support and resistance might be. So I usually mark off maybe 2 levels below and 2 levels above current price action. So I'll put another one right here, and then I'll maybe mark off another one right here. So hopefully you can see kind of how I'm spotting these. The higher volume nodes where it sticks out to the right, there was a lot of trading happening in that area, and that's where I'll mark off its potential support and resistance. All right, so let's move into the 5-minute time frame so we can actually see a little bit how the trading goes and how it reacts to these levels. So as I zoom in and zoom out, you can see that these support and resistance levels kind of shift. So they're not going to look like it was good support and resistance right now. And again, we're kind of in the middle of like a big block of lots of choppiness in that area. So it'll be interesting to see how price reacts. My thought process as we go into this replay is we could potentially come down to this level, and since we've already retested it, we could drop through it and find support here, or we could break above this level, possibly find resistance here, possibly retest, and then continue higher. So that is just off the cuff, not knowing how price is going to react. Those are kind of my if-then scenarios and how I would watch for reactions at these levels. So again, these are levels, these are regions. This is a big, on NQ, this is a big range of about 50 points or so. So you have to be patient and see how price reacts at these levels and not just automatically enter on a limit order. And then some of my other strategies, I use VWAP, I use initial balance. So some of these might line up and have confluences at these levels, so you can really dial in a little bit more about where exactly in this level price might reject or find support. But this is overall higher time frame, finding support and resistance levels using volume profile. All right, so let's start this replay and see how it reacts, see how well we did on marking off our levels. So chopping around in this region right here, which is typical, it's deciding if it wants to find support or resistance here. Looks like it's fallen below a little bit. And let's see how price continues. All right, so we had a big sell-off. I don't know what this was. It could have been news driven or something like that. But you can definitely see, this is the 15-minute chart, so it's happening a lot quicker than it would live. But we were finding resistance at this level. The levels that I marked off, they can be support or resistance. Price likes to return to areas of high volume, and then you can watch for a reaction off of those levels. So as of now, this level was serving as resistance. It came down to this level and found support for a little bit. Let's see how much of a bounce it got off of this level. From here to here, that bounce was about 49 points. So that was definitely tradable if, for example, you had VWAP here, or maybe the bottom of an initial balance range, or a point of control level. If there was confluence for this level and you had that higher time frame visible range volume profile, high volume node, that is an opportunity for a possible trade. And then again, we found more resistance, and then that large sell-off. So not sure what happened there. Again, that could have been news related. But let's go ahead and find some other levels, since I like to have a couple above, a couple below current price action. So this area right here is definitely a high volume node where price could potentially find support. I would be careful with this big sell-off there, especially if it was news driven. You don't want to try to catch a falling knife, so wait for a reaction if it's going to find a bottom there and before taking a long. If this is going to sell off further, here's another area where it could potentially find support. All right, so let's put this back into replay mode and see how it goes. All right, so there we go. This is all random, you guys. I didn't cherry pick this level. Just using high volume nodes, found that that was a decent spot for support. It bounced there. So far, let's see, that is a 222 point bounce. So insane profits could have been made there. Definitely a tradable level. All right, so from here, let's see. It could possibly find resistance here and continue lower. We're definitely in a downtrend. So it could come back down here and possibly find support again, or it could come back down to our next level and continue this downtrend. So let me push play and see how it goes. Okay, so like I said, it can be either support or resistance. It looks like it has broken up above this level and potentially starting to find support. I wouldn't personally take a long until it starts to establish a base and continues to move up. Because it's kind of still chopping around in this range and it could potentially come back down. But right now it's chopping around quite a bit and it looks to be possibly finding support and it could come back up to this level. So let's do a couple more replays. All right, chopping around here a little bit. Looks like it's finding resistance at this level and it might be continuing lower. Definitely an area of resistance for sure. So this is a spot where you could have been taking shorts off of that level. And now it's coming back down to this next level, finding support. Let's see if it actually holds and continues back up, or if it breaks this level and comes back down to our level down here that we have marked off. Chopping around in that zone. And coming back up to our level. So you guys, I'm not making this stuff up. This was a high volume node. You saw me find that level and mark it off, and it held a support, came back up to this other level that we had marked off, resistance, support again. It's coming back up close to this level. It rejected. So instead of just using your eyeballs to find support and resistance, mark off using the higher time frame visible range volume profile, find the areas of high volume, mark them off as a region for support and resistance, and then watch how price reacts off of those levels. This is a really powerful tool. And again, if you want to watch how I actually use this live while I'm trading in confluence with my other strategies like initial balance, 15-minute opening range, and VWAP, then I would love to share with you. So subscribe so you can get notifications when I do go live. And then also join my Discord, which the link is in the description below. Free Discord. I'm not trying to sell you a course or anything, just wanting to provide some value and help you out with implementing these strategies on your own. All right, hope that was helpful, and we will see you soon.